Good morning, Greater Manchester. It's coming up to 6:20. Coming up at 6:30, all your latest news, traffic, travel and weather, plus today's family fun day out and all your latest sports news with Adrian at 6:45.
But first, a look through this morning's newspapers with Jeff Thompson and his son Jordan. Good morning to the two of you.
Morning.
Morning.
Bit early.
This is the family fun day out for two. Should have seen his face at 4:45 this morning.
Just scream if you want to go faster.
Absolutely.
Right, you've got the papers in front of you. What have you noticed this morning?
One thing that sort of came out at me in a season that's supposed to be silly was the whole issue of the DNA register, the National DNA Register, the Human Genetics Commission, and the worrying revelation that over 100,000 young people who have not committed an offence or any crime are actually on this database. If you underpin that with their objective of ensuring they have the database of all young and older Afro-Caribbean males, I think that's something to give cause and concern for.
Is there a higher percentage of Afro-Caribbean males in there then?
Oh yes, it's quite startling in the revelation. It's only 9% of white males as opposed to 13% of Asian males. If you add the stop and search powers along with every other police measure being imposed on communities in an attempt to zero tolerance the crime and violence at the moment, I think there's a serious issue that needs to be looked at there.
How does that make you feel, Jordan, when you hear that it's a higher percentage of young Afro-Caribbean and Asian males on the register?
Make me feel quite scared actually to go out in knowing that I'm more likely to be stopped and searched than a white teenager. It would make me feel quite scared to go out, yeah.
Do you feel that you are treated with more suspicion?
Yes, in some cases, yes. At school as well, sometimes you can feel that you're targeted more because you notice more and you stand out more to the crowd.
What can young people do to, not that they should have to, but to kind of fight against it?
I think you have to know your rights. I mean, one of the things we do with the Youth Charter is make them aware that there's a UN Charter for the rights of the child. It's knowing, I mean, there are community officers in school. It's interesting, another story where government ministers are advocating that police officers have more time in schools. I think we're going down a very dangerous path. And it leads on again. There's a 14-year-old who's had to go to court, a proud Welsh Sikh female, 14-year-old, who was excluded for 9 weeks over a row over a Sikh bangle. I think we're beginning to take everything down the legal route as the first option when common sense should prevail. And in a society that is and has, I have to say, the government has always promoted the citizenship, the rights and responsibilities and an identity, especially to our young people. We need to make that clear. Young people don't grow up with colour as an issue, but I think we as a generation are a bit too colourblind as to the impact such draconian measures and policies and even laws can have on them simply expressing themselves and playing an active and positive role in society.
Now, interestingly, the judge ruled in favour of this 14-year-old girl, didn't he?
Yes, he did. He did. Yet again, I just cannot see why it has to go to court. You know, the court's resources, the impact on the young girl, which I think is and has to be critical in all of this. I mean, Jordan is as you say, he sticks out. But I'm very mindful as a parent where he goes, who he's with, but not so much the friends he hangs out because they're just teenagers, but it's the police and the relationship with the police, which I think is more stormtrooper and as it were adversarial than actually a relationship where you know your officers and they know and understand young people. But this young girl will clearly have been scarred in some way, emotionally and within her rights. She now has to go back to school. All right, she's got the summer holidays, but I just think this is the wrong place and the wrong arena.
And she made it very clear when she came out of the court and she was delighted about the ruling, but she said, you know, first and foremost, I am Welsh, but why can't I be Welsh and be Sikh?
There you go. It's unusually, why can't I be Welsh and Sikh? You know, Sakara Watkins Singh is quite a unique blend of names, but I think reflects the diversity of this country, the currency of that diversity. But I think we're still locked into, at times, very entrenched views, and I don't think it helps us progress into a more fair, just and inclusive society.
Do you think that this will make education chiefs maybe think twice before maybe doing something similar in future?
Well, it has to. I mean, the amount of occasions Jordan will come home with a situation where there's always a letter, there's always a wish to have a discussion, where many years back when I compared it to my somewhat more enthusiastic childhood at school, it was a case of discussion. There was a relationship between the teachers. I think teachers have had that power taken away. There are attempts for policies to put that back, but I don't think putting, yet again, to the point I made earlier, police back into schools. Police should be there to uphold the law and enforce the law. But I think there's a lot of self-policing and collective policing that takes part within the prevention of all things. And I think with young people, that's in showing them the right way and then giving them a chance to make their choices. They won't have to make decisions like us for many a year, but the choices are made too early. And for a young 14-year-old to be in the courts defending the right to wearing a bangle, I think is a step too far.
The Olympics are also in the newspapers today. We'll show you some pictures a little bit later about London and how it's developing for 4 years' time. Obviously, our athletes are out there already. I know one subject that you wanted to touch on this morning was Dwayne Chambers.
Yes. I thought that he should have been able to compete in the Olympics because if he's already served his ban, and I think he should have been given the chance to compete in the Olympics to represent his country. And he had also already represented his country since the ban was placed.
Do you think, though, that maybe he represents a poor role model in that respect for youngsters?
I think because he admitted that he had done wrong, and I think he just should have been given another chance, really, if he's come forward and said that he had taken drugs, and he should have been given the chance to go to Beijing to compete
Do you
in
think
the
that's
Olympics.
important, Jeff, that young people see if somebody does do a crime and does the time, then the slate is wiped clean and they're given a second chance?
None of us are perfect. Joey Barton has been released today. He has been immediately rehabilitated back into his career, what he is best at. It'd be interesting to see how he is also developing and addressing that problem he has. It's clearly a problem. There have been numerous offences, and I think yet again the World Doping Agency spoke in favour of Chambers. Olympic legend Edwin Moses likened it to a death sentence. What does Dwayne do? He's come from the streets. Don't send him back to the streets. How are we going to use him? He's not a role model. He's only been a father for a year or two. What I'm saying is, that's his gift. If we've given him the tools to make the right choices, like young people, that he will inspire, and he does have an impact on the streets. Why aren't we using him more positively? He was allowed to compete for Britain after his ban, then he's told he's not allowed to compete for Britain. Let's have a consistent policy that is understood by all of Britain's sportsmen and women, and that is consistent. I fear there's some inconsistencies here, and in my view that's unjust. If he's paid his price, it was interesting that he was not banned for actually taking drugs whilst in competition. He actually gave evidence to FBI investigators, and that information was rightfully passed to British athletics officials.
And the fundamental difference between himself and Joey Barton is that Joey Barton's broken the law. He's physically harmed people.
Thank you. There is a violence, and that violence is very much evident and in a critical and important issue on our streets. And this is where you can get the imbalance of justice.
And it's confusing for young people, isn't it?
It has to be. So the role model, I think, is not valid. Heroes and heroines capable of great stupidity and brilliance, but it proves you can make an error and and rehabilitate yourself.
OK, we'll come back with more papers a little bit later.
Thanks.
Coming up next, though, all your latest news, traffic, travel and weather, plus our family fun day with golfing ideas.
And also, we've got your latest sports headlines with Adrian in just a couple of moments' time.